how did I end up with my MK1 Audi TT? How did we get to this car? Well,
many minutes later.
I've really been addicted to you. All of my attention I've been giving to you.
all right, you guys, welcome back for another episode of the weekly discussion where we talk about car stuff, we talk about being a mechanic, we talk about being a car enthusiast, we talk about tools, all sorts of stuff. So today the topic of our discussion is, how did I end up with my MK1 Audi TT? So there's a lot of cars involved in this story, so sit back, relax, enjoy the video. Oh man, how did I end up with an Audi TT? So I actually really like the car, but if you've followed this channel for any length of time, you know that I do not particularly ever enjoy working on or recommending at all European cars because they're overcomplicated, they're over-engineered, they have a lot of problems, and they're expensive to fix. They suck to work on. But here's the deal. My Audi TT is a toy, for one. 2, it's a simple 4-cylinder. 3, it's a manual. I'm not going to drive this thing every single day. It's literally just a toy, and probably most importantly on the channel to make content for you guys. So it's not like a car I'm driving every day. I wouldn't want an Audi with anything but a 4-cylinder in it because it's relatively easy to work on. I don't want to deal with a V8, a V6 Audi at all. I just don't want to deal with it. So how did we get to this car? Well, there's about 4 vehicles involved in the process of getting this car. Now, this Audi is actually the very first car that I've ever traded for. If you are new, I traded my Celica GTS for my Audi Quattro TT. I liked the GTS, it was a fun car. Didn't like the front wheel drive, didn't like the fact that you couldn't tune it, and the aftermarket was very, very limited for the 2ZZ engine without having to spend a ridiculous amount of money. I will say this, after you drive a 2ZZ, which if you didn't know is the motor that Toyota built in conjunction with Lotus to put in their Elise and a few other cars, after you drive that, a lot of other motors feel really lazy because that thing makes beautiful sounds for a 4-cylinder. It winds out to almost 9 grand. I think fuel cut in mine was at 8,400 RPM. It's an entertaining car to drive, but it wasn't fast and it was so strung out from the factory that there wasn't a lot of potential there. You know, 11.5 to 1 compression. Didn't leave you much room to play with boost or anything like that. So anyway, we got the Audi TT. But we have to back way up to when I got this place. So in 2018, 17, somewhere around there, somewhere around when I first bought this place, I got this house in spring of 18. I had a 3-valve F-150, which is terrible. But I had this big 3-valve F-150 that I bought back in 16, I believe. I had it for about 2 years. I had payments on it. I wanted to buy a house, so I had to get rid of that vehicle. The only other car at the time that I had been driving was a 97 Maxima, and it had like 380,000 miles on it. Just was not a reliable car, and it was physically rusting apart, so I ended up selling that. All I had was the pickup. Had to sell the pickup to get rid of the lien so that I could get a house. So I needed a car. I ended up buying my 1995 Camry, which to this day has been the best car I've ever owned ever. That's a whole nother video. I would literally buy one of those just to make a video on how great they are. 90s Camrys with the 4-cylinder, you could not kill those things. It was an absolutely amazing car. I wish I would have never gotten rid of it, but I was still working at the Toyota dealership at the time. Fast forward about 5 months after I bought this Camry, maybe a year, whatever. So I'm driving this 95 Camry. I go to work. This customer brings in a 2008 Prius and is convinced the head gasket's blown out of it. So we take a look at it, shop looks at it. Nothing wrong with it. There's a little bit of cosmetic damage. And he's like, I just want to get rid of it. And I'm like, the Prius is going to get better gas mileage even than my Camry. And it's a newer car. Had a nicer interior. There was a lot more room. It was a hatchback. The seats folded. Blah, blah, blah. I loved my Prius. And you'll never believe this, but I actually paid $300 for this Prius and drove it home. I did a few things like fix the bumper, put different headlights in it, but that was it. And I drove this car for a few years. The problem with driving a Prius and having an automotive YouTube channel is there is no content to make for you guys. I tried, and I loved my Prius, I really did. And when I was working at the Toyota dealership, it made sense. I live about 30 miles away from there, so it was a great car to zip back and forth to work. And then the GTS happened. Oh, the Celica. I'm gonna grape you in the... So it's another Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it was at work, and I waltzed back to the used car trade row section of our lot, which was behind the dealership where all the cars waiting for inspections were. So I get back there and I see this giant wing sticking out from behind a car, and I'm like, no way. So I run over there and it's a 7th gen Celica. At the time, I don't know a whole lot about these cars other than that the one you wanted obviously was a manual. So I looked in, saw the manual transmission, and I knew the one that you wanted had the 2ZZGE in it. Didn't know a whole lot about these cars at the time. I just remember what the intake plenum looked like, and I knew that that was the one that was in the Lotuses. That was the one that revved really high. That's the one you wanted. That was the good one. You didn't want the one with the 1ZZFE, which was in every Corolla and everything else, and burnt oil and had all these problems. So, run up to the sales tower, find the key, go, and I drive it. And it's not like super fast, but when the lift kicked in, variable valve timing, essentially your VTEC kicked in, this car would just scream all the way just a hair past $8,000. And I was like, this thing is awesome. And I had a little bit of like just excitement and butterflies going on. I was like, this is gonna make great content for the YouTube channel. I'm gonna be able to do so much to this car. I traded the Prius. Yeah, I traded the Prius in as an employee at Toyota to Toyota for the Celica. And I can't remember exactly how all the math worked out, but at the end of the day, this Prius that I paid $300 for, maybe invested another couple $100 into, so let's say I'm in at $600, they ended up giving me $2,500 on trade. So essentially I drove this Prius for a couple years and made money on it and got this Celica. Celica was rough. Did not have a tunable ECU. You would have had to get a standalone to really do much of anything. To do forced induction with any kind of boost pressure, you had to build the motor and you essentially had to knock down the compression. It was front wheel drive. There were just a lot of things I didn't like about the car, right? And for months, you guys, when I was making videos with the Celica, I was really conflicted because I'm like, you know, I like the car, but I don't love it. I didn't have that excitement for the car because of the lack of modability, right? So I posted for sale once this pandemic happens, and I put this ridiculous price on it. And this guy messages me and he's like, hey, would you trade for an Audi? And I'm thinking like A4, you know, whatever. And I'm like, hell no, I don't want your problems. And anyway, it turns out being this TT. And you guys have seen the car. We've done walk-arounds, we've done driving videos. It needs some work, but I was like, you know, I don't know a whole lot about these. So I asked him, you know, maintenance records, problems, mods, any of that stuff. I do a little research on these cars. It's all-wheel drive, haul decks, but all-wheel drive. Love that, right? All-wheel drive, that's a plus. I hate front-wheel drive. Manual transmission, turbocharged, simple 4-cylinder, and you can tune the ECU. So this thing is essentially a drivetrain upgrade. I get forced induction from the factory. I still have a manual transmission. The interior is much nicer. The look for a lot of people can be hit and miss, but what I liked about it as opposed to my Celica, not that I hated the looks of the Celica, but the Audi TT is just more mature, right? It has less of that hot boy racer status. And I like that. It's a little more mellow. So for me, it hit all the right buttons. You know, I wanted something that could handle with that drivetrain upgrade, the turbo. All that stuff's gonna be fun. So me and Lucian, who you guys know. Yo, are you ready?
Yeah, give me a second.
No, I'm filming you.
What?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Drove about an hour and a half, meet this guy halfway, and traded cars. And that is essentially how we got the Audi TT on the channel. Big mess. I wish I still had the Camry. The Prius, I loved. I would actually like to have another one. That's how we got a TT. All right, you guys. So as always, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Weekly Discussion. I hope you guys really enjoyed these videos. I just wanted to explain to you exactly how we ended up with an Audi TT on the channel. Super excited to keep bringing you content on that. Hopefully soon we'll have that headlight video finished up. The front bumper, we're getting there. In this week's vlog episode, you're gonna see exactly where we are at with that. Drop me a comment down below, like and subscribe if you have not already. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.